hey man, is Big Pharma doing this on purpose? Is Big Pharma
Yes. I'm just
Is Big Pharma, as Fimic says, a very big critic of Big Pharma, as we know. Uh, are they the ones that are doing this for profit versus doing this for the betterment of the people of the country? What we think?
It's the former for sure. I mean, I don't think that like I'm sure that a lot of the lab techs, uh, might like have like very strong convictions, right, in terms of like them helping the world. But like GlaxoSmithKline has like already pledged that if they find the cure to malaria, that they'll or the vaccination to malaria, they'll just like make it free in public. So I'm sure there's like some element, but the biggest element in terms of pharmaceutical industry that lives in my head is just everything that happened with Purdue, right, and OxyContin. I think that kind of like was the removal of the veil, so to speak, and a good insight into how these people think of us, right? Which is, at the end of the day, like these things for treatment. Granted, this doesn't necessarily rule out the fact that we should take medication. We should, but they still do have a
Can you
cost.
explain the thing with Purdue they're referring to?
Sure. Yeah, Purdue Pharma released a drug called OxyContin that was used to treat pain symptoms for all sorts of different injuries and disabilities and the like. It was a opioid that had extremely strong effects, and it was advertised as being a non-addictive product. And as time went on, patients in the beginning stages of the release of the drug started having issues with the drug, and in the form of the pain still coming up because OxyContin was just too low a dose to like sufficiently cover someone through the rest of their day. So OxyContin came up with a new strategy to kind of create this terminology of breakthrough pain, which is kind of gave them the green light to release drugs at 100 to 150 milligrams of this opioid.
How's it going,
Uh,
AMC?
just to like kind of like give you like some insight on the matter, the average like I think morphine prescription was somewhere around 15 to 10, and that was considered quite a bit. And they were administering 15 to 17 times that to the American public. They also created these things called pain societies to corroborate their research by lobbying into the sciences as well as the federal government that their drug was pretty much like the most ethical thing to do and the right thing to do. So I guess like to like lend some credence to what Jonathan's been saying, that this definitely does exist. There are interest groups at play that do want to make the top dollar off of us, right? And I think Purdue kind of did expose that quite a bit. The difference is that it just kind of comes in the form of federal regulation
Appreciate hopping you on.
that kind of like regulates these things. The reason why OxyContin got away with what it did was because of conservative lawmakers and their deregulation of the pharmaceutical industry as well as the Food and Drug Administration. I think that these things can be deterred, but the problem is that like if we as a country continually just cut these programs that are built to protect us, they can be actively subverted like they did with the Food and Drug Administration, which got them the label to sell OxyContin. So yeah, there's a really good show about this on Hulu. It's called Dope Sick. It has Michael Keaton in it. It's
Mm.
incredible. I know Jonathan and I's communities were deeply affected by this crisis. Both the people of Florida, the people of Ohio, probably were the battlegrounds for the crisis. And I mean, it still claims around 50,000 Americans' lives every year. So yeah, it's a real big deal, and they got away with it. They paid a minor fine. None of their leadership
yeah.
was arrested whatsoever. It's probably the biggest travesty of justice in this country in terms of corporate politics, aside from the 2008 financial crisis. Yeah.
It really highlights this very important thing in terms of and although we sometimes when people come on, when conservatives or republicans come on and they go like big pharma's destroying the world or something like that, very apocalyptic kind of rhetoric, I push back at the very least because I don't want this kind of overall idea But in general, I've always been pretty honest how my opinions in terms of big pharma, if anyone asks me, that yeah, I'm not a big fan at the end of the day with this big company and their kind of control of drugs. And when it comes down to something like this, when you're trying to put yourself back in status quo for this, you do have to pay attention that what you're putting in your body, especially when they're drugs and not just normal food too, you know what I'm saying? But especially drugs, you got to pay attention to what you're putting in your body and just not assuming just because this label big corporation or university kind of indicated that, oh, it's good because we said so. You got to do your own due diligence to make sure that you're not kind of negatively affecting you moving forward, or making sure that you're not just putting money in their pockets to something that won't even work in the first place. So these are very important things when it comes down to taking these drugs, and especially if you think you are start getting reliant on these drugs and think this is the only way I can live a normal life is if I'm hooked on this, right? So these are very important things to consider. Uh, Jonathan, you want to add anything? No, you're not a big pharma fan.
Um, I think you guys covered it pretty well. Um, I don't think I'm gonna break any new ground here. I think, yeah, I'll just say that because then if I start talking, then I will come up with something to say, and then it'll pretty much be the same thing. So
Nah, you're all good. So with that said, we kind of talked about quite a few things in terms of our issues with uh the overutilization of drugs, especially with the ones that we're referring to. We said some benefits on the super drugs that can make you a better human. And we know they exist for a lot of different industries. And in terms of mental health, some of the better solutions at the end of the day, whether it's therapy or changing your quality of life, are very important things to consider. So, with that said, if we're thinking about the drugs that are being overutilized potentially, or the drugs that are being kind of pushed for people to use because they don't know what else to do in their life, how do you think we should approach that type of thing in our society? Do you think we can put something into policy in reference to big pharma constantly putting these drugs out? I think Biden actually is doing something. I think I briefly saw. Hey, I didn't read in depth with it, unfortunately, but I think I briefly saw where he's kind of putting more restrictions on certain drugs. I believe. Paul, you can quote me if I'm wrong. Um, but what do you think is the best forward if you're kind of telling someone, "Oh man, what am I going to be advocating for? How should we handle this situation moving forward?"
I'm not really certain on what you're asking here. I apologize.
I think there's something Biden is doing. I think there's like a couple of drugs where he's making stricter regulation
Yeah,
on it.
amphetamines. Yeah,
So yeah, that's probably what it was. Okay.
yeah.
So yeah, so that's basically what I was asking, if that was what he was doing, because I briefly read it, but I didn't read in depth with
Yeah,
what he was
so,
doing.
I'll give the anecdote. So for me to get Vyvanse, I, originally, probably before the Biden administration, would have to wait, somewhere to 3 days to get my prescription. Now I have to wait, 3 weeks in a lot of cases, and then I have to pick it up within 2 days or else it expires because of the need of it, and it gets sent to someone else. And it kind of hurts because, I don't necessarily have a dependency on it. Like, I went through all of college without it, but just having it for like certain things that happen in my life, it gives me a lot more. What's the word? If I meet with someone that's like a big financier or something like that, I want to take this so I don't miss a single word of what they're saying in the conversation or something like that. It's a like to me, it's a PED, right? This is like this performance enhancing drug that I only use like pick and choose. For a lot of other people, they take it day in and day out. Look, I'm not a psychiatrist, right, by any
No good.
measure.
Appreciate you
But
in the
what I
chat,
will tell
AMC.
you is that there are quite a few people that I know that do have some health effects from taking these amphetamines so much. And the Biden administration noticed those health effects that were happening. Like, for example, one of the things that some psychiatrists will tell you when actually prescribing you with these medications is you can't work out, right? And I think there's been a couple of instances where people, this is the case with a lot of medications, just completely ignored doctor's orders on it, right?
Mhm.
And like ran a fucking sorry, I don't swear too much. Ran a marathon while on these things, right?
Oh,
Yeah, and you can expect the results, right? Like your heart blows up because remember what an amphetamine does is not only does it make you more focused, it gets that blood coursing, right? And that heart starts pumping in so much of it, right? That
mhm.
it can just completely destroy it. So yeah, like the Biden administration.
That's what I think there's
Mhm.
oh, sorry. Go ahead and
The,
finish.
the really quick, yeah, the Biden administration just like, in my opinion, has taken a little bit too cavalier of steps through the the DEA and elements of the ATF. But I will say, look, I mean, if there are a lot of Americans making stupid decisions with it, right? It might be the time to do it. Granted, it does also impact. It's kind of like a really bad spot because on one side you have people that are kind of dependent upon it so they can either like function in society and the like, or the jobs that they have, or just to like get into these social situations that they need, right? But on the inverse as well, you also have these people that are like literally like blowing out their hearts, coughing up blood, having seizures. The biggest thing with Vyvanse is it can make you forget to drink water, is like a big problem sometimes, or
It
it can
makes
make you
you
drink.
forget to drink water?
Yeah, yeah, I forgot what it is, but, like, for some people, it gives dry mouth, and for others, it actually wets the mouth so much so that, people kind of start to forget to, drink water. Yeah, I like that
Mhm.
you, bought the
Yeah,
signal there.
thank you, Jesus, for the implicit thing, yeah.
On the same wavelength here, yeah, but,
Yeah.
like, the for those listening, Jonathan took a swig right as soon as I
Yeah, I
said
just naturally,
that.
yeah.
But look, it's like a tough sight, right? Like because there's people like me losing, but then there's also people that abuse it, that are winning. There's also a huge problem with private sale of it, right? We all, when we're going to school, we all knew a guy that sold it, right? Or we knew someone that was buying, right?
You know what's funny? The
Mhm.
guy who I knew who did that, he was in the criminal justice program with me, wanted to be
I
an
believe it.
FBI agent. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they're the worst. Anyways.
I believe it, man. Like it's like from what I know, probably one of the quickest ways to make money. Especially if you have like the higher dosages. It's like for like bigger guys like me, I'm taking around like 90 milligrams a day. Uh but like for like if I was to sell, I could basically like put it at any number, right? And people will buy it. And I mean, it really pays rent for some kids, right? Like it's just unbelievable. But as a result of that, you're having people that are unprescribed. They don't have the medical background to know if they like have an issue with it.
Yeah.
You have people with high blood pressure taking these medications when they don't know that they have high blood pressure in the first place. And then, of course, they go to athletics the next day or the gym and they blow out their heart, right? Or they like they
Mm.
have like these issues, right? So,
I think that's
mhm.
potentiality for the way that, like, some pre-workouts go, because 'cause I've seen some of the dosages on, like, pre-workout,
Oh, with like
and,
creatine and stuff like that.
they don't have amphetamines in them yet,
Yeah.
until the next
Hey, man,
company
I
comes
used to
out
be a
and has different
pre-workout guy. Now I just take creatine, not gonna lie.
yeah. Yeah, but it's like, I mean, some of them are like 400, 500 milligrams of caffeine, and caffeine gets the blood pumping too, not quite as much, not
Uh,
nearly as much as, I mean, it has different effects as well, but one of the things they put, not I should reframe it. It's not the caffeine that gets the blood flowing. They have other chemicals, other things in there that allows your blood to flow that's
yeah.
not amphetamines, but then the caffeine has other effects that keep you up,
Yeah, like
obviously,
in the
and
concoction with the other
yes,
ones.
in the
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
concoction of
gets
other
you
things,
wired,
it
100%.
yes, and then people go work out at the gym with them, and it's like, that's gonna be a problem at some point.
For sure.
Yeah.
The
And
big
then
thing
people
I
drink the Bangs, and then they have coffee in the afternoon, and then it's like, dude,
well,
that's
I'll tell you one thing. I used to be a caffeine skeptic, Jonathan, But I'll tell you, I think God made that thing for us, man. Like all the studies about it, there have been so many good studies from actually like reputable organizations. And remember, there's like no massive like pharmacology movement behind caffeine for the
No,
most
no.
part, right?
No. I love
Yeah.
caffeine. I have
Oh
a
yeah.
whole podcast episode. I used to roast I mean, I still roast my own coffee. I used to sell my own coffee, and I read a
Nice.
bunch of studies about it, and I
Oh
like
yeah.
those studies because it's about coffee. So
Dude,
We
I'm
support
telling you,
caffeine
I'm
100%.
willing to cite those studies.
it is like just there. I think like for the most part, there are almost no negative effects with it, right? Aside from
So
like
it
some
depends
fatigue.
it depends on the dosage. The
Sure.
correct dosage of coffee is to get the optimal health benefits with
3
none of
cups.
the negative benefits. There's 3 to 5 cups of coffee a
Yeah.
day. A cup of coffee has, about 40 milligrams of caffeine to, like, 16 to 40, and then if you get into espresso is more like 70 to 80. So cups of black coffee a day. The negative effects of drinking coffee comes from and from caffeine largely, is the caffeine that you get in, um,
Energy
like, energy
drinks?
drinks. Yeah,
Yep.
and energy drinks, because it's not necessarily just the caffeine that's good for you in coffee. The reason that coffee has positive health benefits is the other minerals that are found in the coffee beans that are only in the coffee beans, and it's a very intricate foreplay of the caffeine and the other minerals that
Mhm.
promotes gut health, that promotes or prevention of Alzheimer's, that prevents all of these other things.
It's
But
awesome.
Yeah,
it's
you don't
it's the
be like
dosage.
me who drives 17 hours and drink 13 Monster Energy drinks
Bro.
and
No,
to keep
don't do
himself
that.
up. Not gonna
Yeah,
I
lie,
mean,
don't do that.
my heart almost blew up. Not gonna
dude,
lie,
I
that was a nasty. Once I got to the campus I was driving to, I crashed the hardest I've ever crashed before in my life. My body was just not it. Then I got back
I
up and I
would
was
say
fine, but it was
I would
terrible.
yeah. I would agree with Paul. There are not a lot of big lobbies that are, like,
poisoning the well.
yeah, anti-coffee. Well, that are pushing
Whoa.
well, no, there are I mean, I'm sorry, there are a lot of anti-coffee
The
propagandists, and they
energy
should be
drinks.
cast into the out of darkness with
Yeah.
weeping and gnashing of teeth. Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that are yeah, like the mud water people.
Yeah.
Bro, drink your
Oh,
drink
bro.
your mushroom juice and leave my
Yeah, that
coffee the hell
kava,
alone.
right?
Stay away from
Yeah.
it. Just I don't wanna drink mud water.
What
What kind of campaign is that?
the
Mud water? What?
I think I might have
Get out
seen
of
one
here.
of those ads, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
And then
because we're about to wrap up pretty soon, I think when it comes down to it, when it comes down to the issue with like mental health, drugs, and overusage of drugs, I would say for me personally that we probably should create stronger restrictions for these drugs to, and it's hard for me to say that, there's any restriction we could put out there that says, hey man, do not advertise this to people as much. But at the very least, we should be much clearer that these actually have outstanding benefits for the people that are constantly using these drugs to kind of fix themselves, right? At the very least, with depression and antidepressants, that's very very shaky territory. But at the very least, when it comes to ADHD medication and putting kids on those drugs, when it comes to kids, there's really definitely 100% needs to be a stronger implication on making sure that these kids are not getting hooked on these drugs, but two, making sure that they are at the very least being vetted on way more strictly to the point where, okay, only if necessary. Not okay, my kid is acting up, put them on some ADHD pills. Like, we need to make sure that that's the case, because at the make society relying on drugs to function is just not a good society at the end of the day. And I think that's something we all recognize. If you want to watch the full episode of this podcast, make sure you go on Roku TV and watch it on the Planet X network, where you can watch the full video version for the podcast. Again, go to Planet X Network on Roku.tv to watch the full version. I hope you do enjoy. Of course, you can still listen to the full audio version on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and any other podcast platform you listen to podcasts.